Welcome back to Faction Talk, SiriusXM, Channel 103 for Trunk Nation, talking rock with you live every day, 3 to 5 Eastern, noon to 2 Pacific. Thank you for being here. We got some calls coming up from you guys in a bit. Also want to get into that top 25 list in a second. Top 25 biggest moneymakers in the history of rock and metal music. That should be interesting to dive into. I've been sitting on that for a little bit. Been wanting to tear that apart and get into that with you, so we'll do that coming up as well. Here's a guy that was with his band with me just very recently, actually, in my place in Vegas in the studio, and then that night I got a chance to see Anthrax, Black Label Society, and Hatebreed play, and they are still out there on tour. They're in Canada currently, have a big New York City homecoming show coming up this Friday in Brooklyn. Joining us right now on Trunk Nation is Scott Ian. How are you, Scott?
Hey, good. How's it going, Ed?
Good, man. So I had a chance when you guys were all here about a month ago, and then I got a chance to actually see the show that night at the Brooklyn Bowl. So I got to tell you, man, it was phenomenal. And you alluded to this when you were here, but I'd say this is probably the biggest, most impressive production and open that you guys have had in a long time.
Yeah, in forever. And, you know, even that night in Vegas, we didn't have the full the full Monty in there, all the staging, all the production, because they couldn't fit it on that stage. You know, even between us and BLS, they couldn't get all their stuff in either that night. So, like you mentioned, Brooklyn at Coney Island Amphitheater, we'll have the full thing in at that show. It can hold the whole thing.
I thought it was really cool to have a curtain down, and then you projected like clips of people talking about the band up on the screen, up on the curtain before you guys came out. So that I'd mentioned what you did for YouTube and that series for your 40th that is still out there on YouTube right now. But that's where you sourced that, I imagine, right? Yeah.
We knew we wanted to have some type of intro to the show, and at some point that idea of what if we just took a bunch of bits from the doc series that we did and had it edited together? And initially, our thing was we wanted the whole set change. Like as soon as Black Label was done, then for like 30 minutes there would be a video running, but that just wasn't going to work technically for so many reasons. But so then we edited it down to like the 10-minute intro, that you saw. And actually we've added something very special for the New York show that's only going to happen in Brooklyn, and it's very, very Brooklyn oriented. I don't want to give it away, but you should definitely pay attention if you're at the show in Brooklyn on Friday night. Pay attention to the end of the video before we come on.
Do you still, I mean, I know I talked about this earlier. You guys have toured all over the world for decades, but and nobody lives in the New York area anymore from the band except Frankie. But for you, do you still get up for New York? Is it still special coming back and playing New York after all these years?
Oh, big time. I get more excited about being in New York now than when I lived there. When I lived there, it was just like, oh, big deal. I got to go home after the show. You know what I mean? Like, it's way more exciting as a tourist, let's say, even like when I'm not on tour, to just be in New York with my family or for business, and then getting to go out to dinner or coming in on tour with the band. To me, it's New York's the biggest. It's the biggest show of the tour. So yeah, it's definitely the one. New York and LA are the two for sure, but New York even tops that. And LA was the best show of the tour so far. It was the craziest crowd at the Palladium in LA. A show unlike we've had in the United States in a long time. And, my fingers are crossed that New York will top it.
I thought that too. When I saw the show in Vegas, which was the night before, I was up on the top on the balcony, and, we're all around the same age. And when I was much younger, I would have been down there in that pit watching people like get bashed around. And as I was up there having a couple beers, I was getting my guts up. I'm like, I'm going down there. And I think it was Zach Throne's like, you're not doing that. You're out of your mind. But when you look down on it, and seeing the pit and everything and seeing people doing that, it takes you back to being a kid when you would do that stuff at L'Amour's or whatever. But the thing that's interesting is like when you see pits like that break out at Anthrax shows, are the majority of the people doing that younger, or do you see people like our age in there still?
There's a small minority of people who've been around for a long time. Most of it is definitely the under 30 crowd, and and even younger than that. Yeah, I would say at that Palladium show, LA probably having the best metal scene in the country. Especially amongst like teenagers and that age group. There's just a massive scene in LA for metal. So you play a show there, and it's like this giant whirlpool of a mosh pit of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, all with long hair, wearing high-top sneakers, like losing their minds, just like it's 1987. It's really, really incredible.
In all your decades doing this, Scott, and with all the pit and obviously the big part in Indians, that is a big moment for that, where in the world, what show, where did you see the most insane pit break out? Is there a memory of one that just blew your mind?
I guess if I'm just going based on physical size and the amount of people, there's a couple, whether it was like Hellfest in France. Sometimes you play those giant festivals, and when you've got 50, 60,000 and up amount, people watching you at your stage, and then, the ground opens up, those giant circles will open up. It's mind-blowing. I remember one time at Wacken, there must have been 10,000 people going in a circle. It's crazy to look at. It's just something you don't see anywhere. It's not something that happens generally. Hellfest, Wacken, Grass Pop, playing South America when we were doing stadiums there with Iron Maiden, whether it was, Chile or Brazil or Argentina. Just when you have these giant masses of people and then that starts to happen, it's like unlike anything you've ever seen in your life.
Everybody that's called into this show since you've been out there on this tour with BLS and Hatebreed have all come back and called in super positive, saying they can't believe the energy of the band. They can't believe how great Joey still sounds. They're loving the whole package with BLS and Hatebreed. I mean, the whole thing. That being said, like every tour seemingly that goes out there, you guys have had some hiccups here. You missed a couple shows because I guess some guys got sick. And then more recently, you missed a show. We had somebody call in who was actually at the show, I think, in Rochester with a staging situation. Can you shed some light on both of those things when you guys had to lose shows?
Yeah. Charlie, Frankie, and Joey got sick. They all got COVID. And, look, I look at it this way. The BLS guys, they all went through it on their last leg that they were just out. Zach got sick. They were out for 10 days. We got lucky. They got sick. We had a couple of days off around those two Texas shows, which kind of helped us time-wise. So they were able to have 5-6 days of not being symptomatic anymore, and we were able to pick it right back up in Atlanta. So we only missed the 2 gigs. And look, we were expecting it going into this. We had many band meetings and many talks with tour management and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And it's like, it's going to happen. It's just a case of when and how serious. And luckily everybody was mild and everybody felt better quickly. And we were able to move forward. And the staging thing, like, that was just ridiculous. It's the Armory in Rochester. It's a really old venue. Nobody's even put a Band-Aid on that stage in I don't know how many decades. And, it was falling apart in the afternoon, and the venue it was pointed out to them what needed to be done to fix it in order for the show to happen, and apparently their fix only made it worse. And during Hatebreed's set, the stage was coming apart to the point where our tour manager and Black Labels were under the stage seeing what was going on, and they were hearing the metal struts breaking while Hatebreed was playing. They heard these things. They were literally snapping. Ugh. So they had to run, obviously, out from under the stage. And, there was no way to fix it between Hatebreed, who had to cut their set short because it wasn't safe, and for Zach and the boys to get on stage. You're looking at a 4-hour, quick fix to get it going, let alone 30 minutes between bands. So there was just no way to make it safe. I mean, what are you going to do? Have Zach up on his riser, jump down off of that, and go right through the stage? You can't put people in a situation where they're going to get hurt. And that was a really dangerous scenario. And look, the last thing any of us bands ever want to do is cancel a show. That was just completely out of our hands, and it just sucks. It sucks for everybody involved.
Well, yeah. I mean, on the COVID thing, I mean, you really to only have missed a couple shows is actually amazing for everybody to have bounced back that quick, especially Joey, because that wreaks havoc on your breathing. I mean, I've had it. Everybody seems to have had it at some point. So that was great that it was only whatever you missed 2 shows there. But on the staging thing, I talked about this when it came out that you guys pulled that. I told the audience, I said, I've been on countless stages, and I'm on stages all the time doing what I do, introing a band, whatever. And you kind of take it for granted that the stage is going to be safe and secure, and you put a lot of faith into the people that set that up, both the stage and what's above you, the lighting and stuff. So if you see the fact that somebody picked up on it and saw it, and that you were able to not have avert a disaster is actually really lucky.
Well, they saw right away in the afternoon when the crew started setting up in the center of the stage, like where the center mic would be at the front of the stage, was super, super bouncy, these wooden boards, to the point where the mic, like if you even stepped near the mic stand would move. Like it couldn't even stay in place. So then even when Hatebreed was going on, they were told, just be really careful around this center area. And then literally it started to open up, like the boards started to split apart. And we're just in the dressing room, like starting to warm up, and our tour manager Paul comes in and says, "There's a 50-50 chance this show's not going to happen. The stage is coming apart." We're like, "What?" That's a first for us, since we've been on tour since 1984.
Yeah, well, thank God they caught it, because I've seen stages go down, and it's a scary thing. So it's a good thing that. That was caught. You think you're going to be able to go back and make it up? Do you want to try to make it up?
Yeah, we would certainly. It can't happen on this leg just based on venue availabilities and all that kind of stuff. But you didn't hear it from me, but there is a lot of talk about possibly doing a second leg of this, with this tour. So I would assume Rochester would have to be on that routing.
The tour that's currently out there is playing Toronto tonight, and you can see all the dates at anthrax.com, and then a big homecoming show, New York City show this coming Friday, the Ford Amphitheater, Coney Island, Boardwalk, Anthrax, Black Label Society, and Hatebreed. Have you guys written on the road? Are you doing anything with new music while you're out there, or you don't really do that and just wait for the studio for that?
We thought we were maybe going to be able to work on a lot of this, because we do have like 8 or 9 new arrangements, and I've got lyrics for about half of that. And we thought maybe we'd be able to work in the dressing rooms, but tour's just been so busy. It's like every day the schedule, there's always something. There's press, there's promo, there's meet and greets, there's signing stuff. Next thing you know, you're eating, and then it's time to warm up to get on stage. And it's just the mindset is so different on a day in, day out basis. Being on tour, my mind every day is just really focused on how do I make tonight my best show of the tour. That's all I worry and care about, is getting on stage and doing the best job I can do. So I think diluting that by putting a bunch of brain power into the new music might actually affect, what I'm doing on stage. And, I think we would just rather, once the tour is done, we'll pick up where we left off.
I know the other night you played a little Pantera as a nod to Dime, and obviously you've got Zach out there, and in your own band you got Charlie, and we all know now that this Pantera tribute's going to go out and they're going to do some shows. Have you seen those guys? Have they worked through anything? Have they jammed any Pantera in preparation for what they're going to do?
Well, we have. Me, Charlie, and John at Soundcheck the other day played New Level, and we played 2 songs. Oh, and we went over Domination, which was the little bit we did it last night too, in Pittsburgh. Charlie just busted out with it. So Jamie Jost has been, I don't know if he says it every night, but some nights he says it from the stage, how we've got 50% of Pantera in the building, and the crowd gives a big cheer. But no, not to my knowledge, they haven't. But we've been jamming in the dressing room, and because I know I could play a Pantera set. Let's put it that way. So, it's fun to jam with Charlie, and if anything, maybe it gives him a little bit of rehearsal time.
How do you feel that no matter how long that lasts, and we don't have all the details yet, maybe you know more than I do and can't say, but as far as how active they're going to be with doing that, how have you had conversations with Charlie as to how you're going to balance Anthrax and him doing that? Is that all been kind of sorted out?
Well, look, Anthrax is obviously everybody's priority. So, we don't know what our schedule is. That we really want to focus on getting a record written and get in the studio and get a record out for next year. So in all of that happening, that of course would afford Charlie more free time, let's say, because once he's done with drum tracks, he could take off. So it's kind of good timing in that way. Of course, once we have a record out, that means we're going to go out and tour on the back of that album. So, I can say this. We're not going to let anything get in the way of our business. You know what I mean? We can't let anything affect what we're doing as far as moving forward as Anthrax. So whatever happens, we'll get worked out for everybody's best interests,
I mean, there's a lot of bands with guys that are in one or two major bands at the same time, but it is a juggling act. You do have to figure that out. And then do you have a sub if there is a conflict, and then who gets the sub? So that's all stuff I'm assuming you're going to have to discuss if you haven't already.
Yeah, look, I don't know that they know even how much or what their plan is. I would assume They're going to kind of test the waters maybe and see what happens and then take it from there. I can't imagine it's going to be anything but a huge, unbelievable response. I mean, just look, come on. You look at the band that's playing, you think about the songs they're going to play, two generations of fans that never even got to see Pantera. These songs deserve to be played. They need to be played. They need to be heard. They need to be moshed to. They need to be headbanged to. I can't imagine it's going to be anything but a fantastic reaction once it actually happens.
Hey, I'll let you go in a second, but something I didn't get to talk to you about when you were here a month ago when we were hanging out, on the air at least, is the Motor Sister record, because you put out a second record with a side band that you have, along with your wife and Jim Wilson and John Tempesta, Joey Vera, a great band called Motor Sister. Second record came out this year called Get Off. And I imagine juggling everything you're juggling, it's been difficult to really focus on promoting that or doing shows, right?
Yeah, it sucks, but it's the reality. Obviously I'm busy with Anthrax. Johnny's busy with The Cult. Joey's out with Merciful Fate. Jim is out with Daniel Lanois, and Pearl is busy, writing a record and writing with other people too. So it's just, it makes it really hard. The thing about that though is, look, we put the record out. We love it. We think it's amazing. Everyone should go listen to the new Motor Sister album, Get Off, wherever you get your music. And, we don't have to tour on the back of it. We could always, at some point when we're all available, put a run of dates together. And that's the hope, that we'll get to do that at some point.
Yeah, it's important for people to know that haven't heard of Motor Sister. Anthrax is a way heavier, more metal, thrashy thing, whatever. But if you're into straight up hard rock, like I love as well, great vocals, great melodies, Motor Sister's a different thing. That's a whole different kind of side of you that you get to exercise in that.
Oh yeah, it's everything we loved about 1970s hard rock, synthesized, through our brains and our playing ability and Jim's songwriting ability. It's just a kick-ass hard rock record, and I haven't stopped listening to it since we made it. I listen to Motor Sister like a fan, not that I'm actually like in the band.
Yeah, no, it's a killer record. Both records are great. And the last thing, I want to get your opinion on this. So I was talking to my audience earlier. We were talking about farewell tours and how no band, when they do a farewell tour, ever really goes away. Everybody ultimately ends up coming back. It's just
Slayer
every day.
hasn't come back yet.
Well, who?
Slayer hasn't come back yet.
Well, exactly my question being that they're one of the big four, And if we were ever going to get another Big Four show again, we'd need them to come back. Do you think Slayer ever plays again?
Put me on
I'm not
the
holding you
spotlight.
to it. I'm curious. If you were a betting man, I'm in Vegas right now. If you were a betting man, what would you say?
If there was one band that I will believe when they say we're done, it's Slayer. Slayer is very much, they're Slayer. There's no fucking around. I'm going to take them at their word that we're done. That's it. We're done. We did what we came here to set out to do, and we're done. I think maybe they'll be the band to break that, break that streak of bands who say we're done and then they're really not done.
So that means for people holding out hope for another Big Four show, that ain't ever going to happen.
Well, maybe you do a different Big Four and you add in a different band. You add Exodus, and then it's like the existing Big Four that still exists.
You're rewriting the rules of rock. You're changing up the Big Four. You call it like the Big 4.5 or something like that.
Well, it should have been the Big Five anyway from the beginning. I mean, Exodus never should have been left out of that because they were absolutely there and had as much to do with the birth of thrash metal in the United States as anybody else, and more so.
Yeah. Many have said that.
Between Exodus and then, Kirk was in Exodus and then Kirk goes to Metallica. It should have been 5 from the outset.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I'll let you go. I know you got a gig. Say hi to the guys. And again, everybody go see Anthrax on this tour. Black Label Society and Hatebreed, they're out there firing on all cylinders. If you're in Toronto, and we do have a lot of listeners in Canada, they're playing tonight at a place called History. And then you've got a show tomorrow in, I'm not even going to try to announce this.
Yeah, it says Three Rivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Three Rivers.
Riviere. Yes.
Okay. And then
that's
Friday,
Montreal.
All right, and then Friday you got the Ford Amphitheater, Coney Island, Brooklyn, the hometown New York City show. Tickets are on sale now for all of this. And again, go to anthrax.com for more information, VIPs, tickets, and all of that. Good to talk to you, man. Travel safe, and I'll see you soon, all right?
Yeah, man. Thanks, Eddie.
You got it. There he
all
goes.
Right,
see you, man. Scott Ian dropping in. And him checking in here from the road on a tour that's been very, very well reviewed by you, my audience, who have gone out and seen it. If you've been lucky enough to catch a show somewhere, it's been nothing but positives on that tour. And according to what Scott just said and alluded to, very possible you'll see another leg of that announced soon after this one wraps up. And that's going to be an interesting balancing act, with the Pantera thing. We just don't know what, and as Scott also said, and I agree with him, and I know he's telling the truth, they're not entirely sure what they're going to do with this. As far as the Pantera stuff, it's still, I think they're still trying to figure some things out with that, and how extensive that's going to be. If it's going to be a consistent tour where they go out and do 200 shows, which is probably unlikely. You saw Charlie Benanti even say that in his mind it's more special events, but without a doubt they will headline all the major rock and metal festivals around the world next year. And maybe you'll get some scenarios where most of those festivals are 2 or 3 nights. Could potentially have a scenario if, I don't know if Charlie would be up for this or Zach, where you could have one day is the Pantera thing, and the next day Charlie playing with Anthrax on the bill, Zach playing with BLS on the bill. So that's another way they could work that, because you don't want, I'm sure Charlie doesn't want his main band Anthrax being impacted by him doing this other major thing. So I'm sure that's still a lot that's being sorted out with this and how it's all going to go down and how they're going to manage it. But they'll figure it out as they go, and we'll see as they go. There's many examples of it. I mean, one that comes to mind immediately is Miles Kennedy, who splits his time between Alter Bridge and Slash, and then launched the solo thing. Juggles his schedule between 3 different acts, 2 major bands. So it's doable. Can it at times create some friction and some kind of like tension because of conflicts, because we all know how important touring is? Possibly. Might they have a sub for either band if there's a conflict? Possibly. Anything's possible. We've seen it all. And when it comes to touring, that's where the business is. So people figure out a way to try to make it work. All right. Well, I thank Scott for some time there. Good to have him checking in. Let's take a break. And when we come back from the break, I want to get into this list. And I see some calls, too. We'll get some calls going in a bit. But I think this list will be of interest to you guys. I love this kind of stuff. I think you do, too. The top 25 best-selling rock and metal artists of all time.